Good morning, welcome to CATEX TV. My name is Frank Fortunato. Today is Friday, August 8th, 2014. Well, we would normally start with the regular world news, but there's been a reinsurance bit of news that is so big we come out with it first. Catlin Group, the big London-based syndicate and international reinsurer, has unveiled a set of interim results this morning that has blown away expectations held by everybody. They announced pre-tax profits of about $318 million, an increase from $145 million for the quarter, despite a series of losses, including the Malaysian Flight 370, the plane that is yet to be found, as well as the MH17 flight that was shot down over the Ukraine. Catlin has reported the strongest set of numbers across its peer groups, with net income beating company-collected consensus by about 44%. This is really something on their part. Their CEO and founder, Stephen Catlin, said there was more pricing resilience in Catlin's U.S., Europe, Asia, and Canadian hubs than in its London and Bermuda markets. He also observed that some of the commentary in the marketplace about rates was not as bad as some observers contend. Of course, Catlin is big enough that they have a broad book of business and can write anywhere in the globe on just about any line of business where rates are competitive, so that's just what they're doing. Good for them. Meanwhile, on the international front, the 72-hour truce in Gaza expired at 8 a.m. Friday. At promptly 8 a.m., 18 rockets were fired from Gaza into Israel. Two were intercepted by the Israeli Iron Dome anti-missile defense system. 14 others fell onto open ground, causing no damage. The Israelis promptly retaliated by targeting terrorist sites with artillery fire and airstrikes. Hamas, in an internet posting, said that it claimed responsibility. It did not accept an extension of the ceasefire, but they're going to continue negotiations in the peace talks in Egypt. President Obama announced last night that he's authorized airstrikes against the ISIS Islamic militants in Iraq. This is really mainly to add a group of about 6,000 refugees who have huddled up near the Kurdish border, who are steadily being encroached upon by ISIS. Humanitarian food drops have begun right now. Obama did not speak until after the food drop occurred. Two cargo planes from the U.S. Air Force dropped approximately 8,000 meals ready to eat. They were escorted by two F-18 jet fighters. After they returned safely to the American base, Obama did take onto the airwaves. Meanwhile, in Hawaii right now, Hurricane Iselle, which is barely holding on to hurricane strength, is pounding the state. It's poised to become the first hurricane or tropical storm to make landfall in Hawaii in 22 years. As if that wasn't enough, there was a 4.5 magnitude earthquake that struck Hawaii yesterday, but no reports of any damage or injuries. It's unlikely that this is going to be a life-threatening event. It's just going to be a giant rainmaker as well as a windmaker. Right behind it is Hurricane Julio, which has been downgraded to a Category 1 hurricane right now. That's about 1,000 miles behind Iselle. It's expected to hit Hawaii on Sunday morning. Well, this is interesting. The World Health Organization finally has awakened and this morning declared the Ebola outbreak in West Africa to be an international public health emergency that requires an extraordinary response to stop its spread. The World Health Organization also earlier this year announced the same for polio, but that hasn't really had any particular effect. The Centers for Disease Control in the U.S. has already elevated their Ebola response to the highest level. They did that last week. There's a general consensus so far that the local authorities have dropped the ball on this and could have quelched the Ebola outbreak several months ago had they had the resources to do it. One of the hedge fund reinsurers, Third Point Re down in Bermuda, has reported top-line growth and an improved combined ratio for the second quarter, but it did fall to an underwriting loss. This would be the company run by John Berger. The company employs a more aggressive investment strategy than traditional carriers. Dan Loeb's Third Point managed investment portfolio handles the investments. The return was down from 3.2% in the second quarter of 2013 to 2.3%. It's interesting to note that Third Point Re actually saw an increase in gross written premiums. They were up 48% to $145 million. Our take on this is that if John Berger is writing business, it's pretty good business, and he's getting the right price for it. So I think everybody should just hold their breath on this one, and let's wait and see what happens. I'm not particularly concerned about it. The remains of Hurricane Bertha are now wending their way across the Atlantic Ocean and are approaching Ireland and the UK. According to the UK Met Office, the remnants have about a 40% chance of hitting the southeast of England sometime on Sunday night or Monday morning. It's expected to bring downpours of rain and wind and will most likely end the official British summer. Meanwhile, last evening, while people were standing in front of the White House as President Obama was preparing to speak, a rogue toddler squeezed through the metal fence outside the building and ended up on the lawn of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. A brief security breach was called. It was an emergency. The White House was in lockdown for just a few minutes. The Secret Service apprehended the child. The Secret Service said we were going to wait until he learned to talk to question him. But in lieu of that, he got a timeout and was sent on his way with his parents. There were no trespass charges brought against him. I have stood outside those gates, and it would have to be a pretty small toddler indeed to fit through that fence. That's the news for today. If we have any breaking news, we'll come back and tell you. Thank you for watching. Have a good weekend.